Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Prayers by Queen Kunti, Shlok 37. Apadya nastatvam swakrute hitaprabho, jihasasi srudruddho anujivinaha, eshan na cha anyadvataha padam vujat, parayanam rajasu yojitam hansam. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today? Though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us now, when all kings are at enmity with us. The Pandavas are most fortunate because, with all good luck, they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. The material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything, but the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of nature, beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven down to the present age. They are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power, but the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of this standard of civilization. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the will of Lord Sri Krishna, but they were not ideal parasites of the Lord. They were all highly qualified both by personal character and physical activities. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by constitutional position. The perfection of life is therefore to become dependent on the will of the Lord instead of becoming falsely independent in the material world. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called Anantha or without any guardian, whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called Sanatha, or those having someone to protect them. Therefore, we must try to be Sanatha so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable condition of material existence. By the diluting power of the external material nature, we forgot that the material condition of life is the most undesirable perplexity. The Bhagavad Gita therefore directs us that after many, many births, one fortunate person becomes aware of the fact that Vasudeva is all in all and that the best way of leading one's life is to surrender unto him completely. That is the sign of Mahatma. All the members of the Pandava family were Mahatma in household life. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the head of this Mahatma and Queen Kunti Devi was the mother. The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavad Purana, are therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandava Mahatma. For them, separation from the Lord was just like the separation of a fish from water. Srimati Kunti Devi therefore felt such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who were put into the condition of enmity But all of us are always in such a condition, and the best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. Shlok 38. के वयं नामरूपाभ्यां यदुभिः सह पाण्डवाः भवतो अदर्शनं यर्हि ऋषिकानामिवेशितु. As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once. Kunti Devi is quite aware that the existence of the Pandavas is due to Sri Krishna only. The Pandavas are undoubtedly well established in name and fame and are guided by the great king Yudhishthir, who is morally personified, and the Yadus are undoubtedly great allies, but without the guidance of Lord Krishna, all of them are non-entities, as much as the senses of the body are useless without the guidance of consciousness. No one should be proud of his prestige, power, and fame without being guided by the favor of the Supreme Lord. The living beings are always dependent, and the ultimate dependable object is the Lord Himself. We may therefore invent by our advancement of material knowledge all sorts of counteracting material resources, but without being guided by the Lord, all such inventions end in fiasco, however strong and stout the reactionary elements may be. Shlok 39. Na eyam shobhishyate tatra yath edanim gadadhara tvat padare kita bhati swalakshana vilakshitehe. O Gadadhara Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful, but when you leave it will no longer be so. There are certain particular marks on the feet of the Lord which distinguish the Lord from others. The marks of a flag, thunderbolt, an instrument to drive an elephant, umbrella, lotus, disc, etc. are on the bottom of the Lord's feet. These marks are impressed upon the soft dust of the land where the Lord traverses. The land of Hastinapur was thus marked while Lord Shri Krishna was there with the Pandavas, and the kingdom of the Pandavas thus furnished by such auspicious signs. Kunti Devi pointed out the distinguished features and was afraid of ill luck in the absence of the Lord. Shlok 40. Ime janapadaha srutaha supakoshadi virudaha vanadrina dyudanvanto yedante tava vikshitehe. All these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and grains are in abundance, the trees are full of fruits, the rivers are flowing, the hills are full of minerals, and the oceans full of wealth, and this is all due to your glancing over them. Human prosperity flourishes by natural gift and not by gigantic industrial enterprises. The gigantic industrial enterprises are products of a godless civilization, and they cause the destruction of the noble aims of human life. The more we go on increasing such troublesome industries to squeeze out the vital energy of the human being, the more there will be unrest and dissatisfaction of the people in general. Although a few only can live lavishly by exploitation, the natural gifts such as grains and vegetables, fruits, rivers, the hills of jewels and minerals, and the seas full of perils are supplied by the order of the Supreme, and as He desires, material nature produces them in abundance or restricts them at time. The natural law is that the human being may take advantage of these godly gifts by nature and satisfactorily flourish on them without being captivated by the exploitative motive of lording it over material nature. The more we attempt to exploit material nature according to our whims of enjoyment, the more we shall become entrapped by the reaction of such exploitative attempts. If we have sufficient grains, fruits, vegetables, and herbs, then what is the necessity of running a slaughterhouse and killing poor animals? A man need not kill an animal if he has sufficient grains and vegetables to eat. Thus, flow of river waters fertilizes the fields, and there is more than what we need. Minerals are produced in the hills and the jewels in the ocean. If the human civilization has sufficient grains, minerals, jewels, water, milk, etc., then why should it hanker after terrible industrial enterprises at the cost of the labor of some unfortunate man? But all these natural gifts are dependent on the mercy of the Lord. What we need, therefore, is to be obedient to the laws of the Lord and achieve human perfection of life by devotional service. The indications by Kunti Devi are just to the point. She desires that God's mercy be bestowed upon them so that natural prosperity be maintained by His grace. श्लोक 41 अथ विश्वेश विश्वात्मना विश्वमूर्ते स्वकेषु मे स्नेहपाशम इमं छिन्दिः दृढं पाण्डुपु वृष्णिषु. O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever me tie of affection from my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Rishnis. A pure devotee of the Lord is ashamed to ask anything in self interest from the Lord, but the householders are sometimes obliged to ask favors from the Lord, being bound by the tie of family affection. Srimati Kunti Devi was conscious of this fact, and therefore she prayed to the Lord to cut off the affectionate tie from her own kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Rishnis. The Pandavas are her own sons, and the Rishnis are the members of her paternal family. Krishna was equally related to both the families. Both the families required the Lord's help because both were dependent devotees of the Lord. Srimati Kunti Devi wished Sri Krishna to remain with her sons, the Pandavas, but by his doing so, her paternal house would be bereft of the benefit. All these partialities troubled the mind of Kunti, and therefore she desired to cut off the affectionate tie. A pure devotee cuts off the limited ties of affection for his family and redeems his activities of devotional service for all forgotten souls. The typical example is the band of 6 Goswamis who followed the path of Lord Chaitanya. All of them belong to the most enlightened and ensured rich families of the higher caste, but for the benefit of the mass of population, they left their comfortable homes and became mendicants. To cut off all family affection means to burden the field of activities. Without doing this, no one can be qualified as a Brahman, a king, a public leader, or a devotee of the Lord. The personality of Godhead as an ideal king showed this by example. Sri Ramachandra cut off the tie of affection of his beloved wife to manifest the qualities of an ideal king. Such personalities as a Brahman, a devotee, a king, or a public leader must be very broad minded in discharging respective duties. Weak as she was, Srimati Kunti Devi was conscious of this fact, and she prayed to be free from such bondage of family affection. The Lord is addressed as the Lord of the universe or the Lord of the universal mind, indicating his all powerful ability to cut the hard knot of family affection. Therefore, it is sometimes experienced that the Lord, out of his special affinity towards a weak devotee, breaks the family affection by force of circumstances by his all powerful energy. By doing so, he causes the devotee to become completely dependent on him and thus clears up the path for his going back to Godhead. Shlok 42. Tvai ma'ena anya vishaya matihi madhupate asakruta ratimud ahata adadva gange cha agho mudanvanti. O Lord of Madhu, as the Gangas forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Perfection of pure devotional service is attained when all attention is diverted towards the transcendental loving service of the Lord. To cut off the tie of all other affections does not mean completely negation of the finer elements like affection for someone else. This is not possible. A living being, whoever he may be, must have this feeling of affection for others because this is a symptom of life. The symptoms of life, namely desire, anger, hankerings, feelings of attraction, etc., cannot be annihilated. Only the objective has to be changed. Desire cannot be changed, but in devotional service, the desire is changed only for the service of the Lord in place of desire for sense gratification. The so called affection for family, society, country, etc., are different phases of sense gratification. When this desire is changed for the satisfaction of the Lord, it is called devotional service. In the Bhagavad Gita, we can see that Arjun desired not to fight with his brothers and relations just to satisfy his own personal desires, but when he heard the message of the Lord, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he changed his decision and served the Lord, and for his doing so, he became a famous devotee of the Lord, for it is declared in all the scriptures that Arjun attained spiritual perfection by devotional service to the Lord. In friendship, the fighting was there, the friendship was there, Arjuna was there, and Krishna was there, but Arjun became a different person by devotional service. Therefore, the prayers of Kunti also indicate the same categorical changes in activities. Srimati Kunti wanted to serve the Lord without diversion, and that was her prayer. This unalloyed devotion is the ultimate goal of life. Our attention is usually diverted in the service of something which is non godly or not in the program of the Lord. When the program is changed into the service of the Lord, that is to say, when the senses are purified in relation with the service of the Lord, it is called pure and alloyed devotional service. Srimati Kunti Devi wanted that perfection and prayed for it for the Lord. Her affection for the Pandavas and the Rushnis is not out of the range of devotional service because service of the Lord and the service of the devotees are identical. Sometimes service of the devotee is more valuable than the service of the Lord, but here the affection of Kunti Devi for the Pandavas and the Rushnis was due to family relation. This tie of affection in terms of material relation is the relation of Maya because the relations of the body or the mind are due to the influence of the external energy. Relations of the soul established in relation with the Supreme Soul are factual relations. When Kunti Devi wanted to cut off the family relation, she meant to cut off the relation of the skin. The skin relation is the cause of material bondage, but the relation of the soul is the cause of freedom. This relation of the soul to the soul can be established by the via medium of the relation with the super soul. Seeing in the darkness is not seeing, but seeing by the light of the sun means to see the sun and everything else which was unseen in the darkness. That is the way of devotional service. Shlok 43. Shri Krishna Krishna Sakha Vrushnavya Vrushabhava Nigruha Rajanya Vanshadhanana Pavarga Gavirya Govinda Godvij Suratihi Aharavatara Yogeshwara Kila Gure Guru Bhagavan Namaste. O Krishna, O friend of Arjuna, O chief amongst the descendants of Vrishni, you are the destroyer of those political parties which are disturbing elements on this earth. Your prowess never deteriorates. You are the proprietor of the transcendental abode, and you descend to relieve the distresses of the cows, the brahmanas, and the devotees. You possess all mystic powers, and you are the presbyter of the entire universe. You are the Almighty God, and I offer you my respectful obeisances. A summary of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna is made herein by Srimati Kunti Devi. The Almighty Lord has his eternal transcendental abode where he is engaged in keeping Surabhi cows. He is served by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. He descends on the material world to reclaim his devotees and to annihilate the disturbing elements in groups of political parties and kings who are supposed to be in charge of administration work. He creates, maintains, and annihilates by his unlimited energies, and still he is always full with prowess and does not deteriorate in potency. The cows, the brahmanas, and the devotees of the Lord are all objects of his special attention because they are very important factors for the general welfare of living beings. Shlok 44 Sutta Uvacha Prutha Itham Kalapadehe Parinuta Kilo Dayaha Mandam Jahas Vaikuntho Moha Yanni Vahamayaya. Suta Goswami said, the Lord, thus hearing the prayers of Kunti Devi, composed in choice words for his glorification, mildly smiled. That smile was as enchanting as his mystic power. Anything that is enchanting in the world is said to be a representation of the Lord. The conditioned souls who are engaged in trying to lord it over the material world are also enchanted by his mystic powers, but his devotees are enchanted in a different way by the glories of the Lord, and his merciful blessings are upon them. His energy is displayed in different ways as electrical energy works in manifold capacities. Srimati Kunti Devi has prayed to the Lord just to enunciate a fragment of his glories. All his devotees worship him in that way by chosen words, and therefore the Lord is known as Uttam Shloka. No amount of chosen words is sufficient to enumerate the Lord's glory, and yet he is satisfied by such prayers as the Father is satisfied even by the broken linguistic attempts of the growing child. The word Maya is used both in the sense of delusion and mercy also. Herein the word Maya is used in the sense of the Lord's mercy upon Kunti Devi. Shloka 45 Tam Badam Ityom Upamantra Pravishya Gajasayam Striyascha Swapuram Ya Asyan Premana Radnya Nivaritaha. Thus, accepting the prayers of Srimati Kunti Devi, the Lord subsequently informed other ladies of his departure by entering the palace of Hastinapur. But upon preparing to leave, he was stopped by King Yudhishthira, who implored him lovingly. No one could make Lord Krishna stay at Hastinapura when he decided to start for Dwaraka, but the simple request of King Yudhishthira that the Lord remain there for a few days more was immediately effective. This signifies that the power of the king is loving affection, which the Lord could not deny. The Almighty God is thus conquered only by loving service and nothing else. He is fully independent in all his dealings, but he voluntarily accepts obligations by the loving affection of his pure devotees. Shlok 46 Vyasaderischare hadnehe Krishnen अद्भुतकर्मणा प्रबोधितो अपीतिहासेन अबुध्यत सुचार्पितः. King Yudhishthira, who was much aggrieved, could not be convinced despite instructions by great sage headed by Vyasa and the Lord Krishna himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all historical evidence. The pious King Yudhishthira was mortified because of the mass massacre of human beings in the battle of Kurukshetra, especially on his account. Duryodhana was there on the throne and he was doing well in his administration, and in one sense there was no need of fighting, but on the principle of justice, Yudhishthira was to be replaced. The whole clique of politics centered round this point, and all the kings and residents of the whole world became involved in this fight between the rival brothers. Lord Krishna was also there in the side of King Yudhishthira. It is said in the Mahabharata that 64 lakh men were killed in 18 days in the battle of Kurukshetra, and some hundreds of thousands were missing. Practically, this was the greatest battle in the world within 5,000 years. This mass killing simply to enthrone Maharaj Yudhishthira was too mortifying, so he tried to be convinced with evidences from histories by great sages like Vyas and the Lord himself that the fight was just because the cause was just. But Maharaj Yudhishthira would not be satisfied even though he was instructed by the greatest personalities of the time. Krishna is designated herein as the performer of superhuman actions, but in this particular instances, neither he nor Vyas could convince King Yudhishthira. Does it mean that he failed to be a superhuman actor? No, certainly not. The interpretation is that the Lord, as Ishwar or the super soul, both in the heart of King Yudhishthira and Vyasa, performed still more superhuman action because the Lord desired it. As super soul of King Yudhishthira, he did not allow the king to be convinced by the words of Vyasa and others, including himself, because he desired that the king hear instructions from the dying Bhismadev, who was another great devotee of the Lord. The Lord wanted that at the last stage of his material existence, the great warrior Bhishmadev see the Lord personality as well as his beloved grandchildren. King Yudhishthir, etc., now situated on the throne and thus pass away very peacefully. Bhishmadev was not at all satisfied to fight against the Pandavas, who were his beloved fatherless grandchildren, but the Kshatriyas are also very stern people, and therefore he was obliged to take the side of Duryodhana because he was maintained at the expense of Duryodhana. Besides this, the Lord also desired that King Yudhishthira be pacified by the words of Bhishmadeva, so that the world could see that Bhishmadeva excelled all his knowledge, including the Lord himself.